Lake Winona 2.0. That's right, from the bottom of the spillway, or as we might call it, the way back home. If you remember in the first episode, I drove from the north side of Lake Cortez, drove through the Cortez Gate, went out and a little west, turned back on Main Hall Road, and I think it's Main Hall number 24,000, and drove over to the Lake Winona Spillway. An absolutely beautiful drive. Go past a magnificent church. Great little map here showing you around. This is the way we're going to go back home. This is looking south, ironically, right now. We'll spin it back around. The purpose of this map is to show you this is the path I'm going to take on the blue here as I leave and depart here. But the bottom line is that the blue line is going away from the village for now. Then we're going to go back west over the top of the village. But look at the backup shot when you get a sec. All of the things that are around here is just amazing. Now we're driving back up out of the spillway area, coming back up to the land. Remember that Lake Winona is the auxiliary backup water supply for Little Rock. Lake Maumelle, large, beautiful body of water just west of Little Rock. If something ever happens to that, the Central Arkansas Water Authority, CACW, will take control, and CACW will move everything over to the Lake Winona Spillway, which was built in the 35s and 40s by the CCC and the WPA, and they built a 39-inch in circumference tube, concrete, that goes 35 miles back into Little Rock and actually goes up to Reservoir Road, where there is a reservoir. There's actually one of the holding surge tanks right there. You'll see when we get up here, this is Central Arkansas Water, and Central Arkansas Water, which is the part of the Little Rock municipality, etc., etc. But they have a home and a daykeeper up here. They have a tender, the guy who lives on site all the time. And talk about a job. They actually opened the facilities between Memorial Day and Labor Day, so they'll be closing here in just a couple of days if you haven't seen that show before. Now, there's the stone-top buildings that they built, that the CCC and WPA built, and this is NF 114. I repeat, NF 114. And then as we turn left into the parking lot here, this is just magnificent. Now, this is a residence, but it's also a park. It's also a working headquarters. If they have any kind of issues or emergencies, this has to be up and ready 24 hours a day, all the time. And you can see it's a magnificent place. A little park, and you're welcome to go here. This is doesn't cost anything. It's not prohibited. Unfortunately, the park part where we're at right now is only open between Memorial Day and Labor Day. But you can enjoy some of the incredible amenities here. If you'll notice on the right-hand side as we pull up, there is a white tower, like a pier, out in the middle of the lake. We're going to see that again in just a minute. That is the intake that goes all the way back to Little Rock. The residence is up on the left, the director of water services, I guess. I don't know. I don't know if it's the director or just the guy who manages the site. Large parking lot, beautiful place. We've seen 3-4 cars here at a time on big weekends. But what you see is there's a beautiful park across the way, and there's a walkway trail down the side, a bridge that actually goes on across. Lake Winona is 1,280 acres. It is absolutely beautiful. Compare that to the roughly, I think it's 1,000 plus acres or so of Hot Springs Village, Lake Balboa. But that is the intake pipe, and it goes from there 35 miles back into Little Rock to serve as the auxiliary water supply for Little Rock, Conway, Greenbrier, Benton, Bryant, you name it. It actually starts going up toward Heber Springs and Greer's Ferry. It is an incredible water system, and all based around Lake Maumelle. As you can see, there's the spillway, and as I mentioned earlier in the previous show, been 10, 15 years ago, there would be people in jeans and all kinds of silly sweatsuits or a bag. And when the water was flowing, they would go riding that spillway all the way down to the bottom. Yeah. If you didn't see, there's a Hickory Nut Church there, just behind it, a little white building you can barely see in the clearing there. If you hadn't seen it, I encourage you to see the Lake Winona 1-Part-0 show, because it is an incredible, incredible set of views. Now, what do you need to understand right now? You're not necessarily looking at just all the national forest. turn back around and it's all national forest, part of 1.7 million acres. And actually, you'd look into the 225,000 acres of absolute wilderness that are just literally just north of here of Lake Winona. But right now, this is just timber and private and beautiful Arkansas land. See the rolling hills? Oh my Lord, this is just gorgeous. As the crow flies, it's exactly 11.1 miles from the north gate of Hot Springs Village. From Cortez Gate, a beautiful, unbelievably beautiful location, and I encourage everybody, go take a drive, find the spillway. There's so many trails and roads that go through here. There's easy ways to get here. We took the hard way just because we were four-wheeling and had a good time. But you can actually go to Crows, go on Highway 5, east to Crows, turn left and go north up Highway 7, and there's the Lake Winona Road, which will take you right there. Your GPS will get you there, and some people even have maps. Who does that nowadays, right? I don't even know. I don't know. Here's the steps that the WPA built in the 30s. I think it was 35, I believe. Beautiful cedars on both sides. I find it interesting. Their cedars aren't necessarily native in the village. They don't just volunteer. Pines will come up and go everywhere in the village. Not so much with the cedars. Now, north of Interstate 40, which we're not far, but as you go a little more west and a little more north, man, cedars become the pine of the forest. The reason I know, I happen to be significantly allergic to cedars, but that's neither here nor there. So remember that we've got the truck parked right there, the Yoda. We're going to turn and go back out that street to where we came in. We're going to turn left and go north on NF 114. Which stands for National Forest 114. And we do not go up that road you see right in front of you there on the left-hand side. That's actually a power line easement. And there's actually, if you were to take Lake Winona and look at it left to right, west to east, we're on the far east, southeast end right now where the spillway is, which, again, was built by the WPA. These guys, oh my goodness, what an incredibly hardworking group of guys. But on the far west side, on the northwest side, there is a boat launch where you can just put your boat in and go puttering around like it's your own private lake, all 1,280 acres of it, and have a wonderful time. Well, there's one little catch, just a tiny, tiny, tiny little catch. Before you go get your 26-foot pontoon boat with the 300-horse motor, yeah, you're going to see the road we're going to travel on, and it is not pretty. Is it passable? Absolutely. Would you want to drag a really nice boat down this way? No. Would you put a John boat on the back of a trailer that, cost a couple $1,000s and you really didn't care that much if you lost the boat or not? Yeah, that's what you would do. It's pretty much only a fishing lake. Doesn't actually have a swimming area. Rumor has it, people occasionally may go to the launch area and paddle around there, but the area is so uninhabited, it's very, very empty and very, very beautiful, as you can tell. You can see the mounds here on the right-hand side where the dam has been built, and then right there you see the park on the right-hand side over by the tree. There's swing sets there, there's picnic tables, there's nobody there is what is there, not a soul. This is also a flood control lake, obviously. It takes the runoff from all of the center middle point of the National Forest and funnels it down to this lake and holds it. When it comes out of the back of this lake, it becomes the alum fork of the Saline River. So, Dennis, that sounds familiar. Well, if you'd like to see more of the alum fork, A-L-U-M, alum fork, of the Saline River, I suggest you go out the Balboa Gate and turn left. And you will drive down by some lowland swamps and some kind of muddy areas there. That, my friends, is the one of the areas that the Alum Fork comes back together. Typically, the Saline comes back together and actually goes right on down to the Ouachita River, and the Ouachita River runs on down to northern Louisiana, actually. As you can see, sprawling, beautiful. If you see the hills way up in the top there, Diane and I had the chance to be there this last week. That was Crystal Mountain Vista. I repeat, you're looking for Crystal Mountain Vista. I'll tell you the good news and the bad news about Crystal Mountain. Crystal Mountain is supposedly, as I see it, the highest peak in the area by far and away, about 150 to 200 feet above the Flatside Wilderness area, Vista. But it has a good gravel road that gets you there, but you turn and go up about 0.8 of a mile. And that 0.8 of a mile, we used our little Toyota four-wheel drive, and I don't think much less than that with big 33-inch tires would have made it up that hill. As a matter of fact, some 5 years ago, Diana and I, the things she lets me do, we actually took her RX 350 Lexus up through this exact same place, up to the top of Crystal Ridge, Crystal Mountain Vista, and well, let's just say we chose to get out and walk. Yeah, we walked about the last half mile. It's not that bad. It's steep, but some of the ruts in the road are really, really washed out. But when you get to the top, as you'll see in one of our upcoming videos, it's a couple of beautiful flat camping areas there, and just cliffs that look like they go from Peru. They look like they just fall off the end of the earth. And again, well, for those of you techies that are looking at this, I want to let you know this is a DJI, that's the brand name, Mini 4, MINI 4 drone that we're using to shoot this with. We're shooting in Ultra 4K. We're using 30 frames a second. Makes a big file, I'll tell you that. Each battery is 20 to 25 minutes long. And could we have just jumped to the part where I get in the truck and drive around? Of course. I think you just need to see how absolutely gorgeous this is. You can see a gray road going to the right. That is the Lake Winona Road that goes right back out to Highway 9. And there's just a little bit of gravel between you and it. A low-slung sedan, don't know that I would encourage that. Any type of SUV or utility vehicle you got, yeah, you won't have any problem here at all. Once again, Lake Winona. This is the Lake Winona Park area run by the Central Arkansas Water. I know I've said it before, but I'm always in awe of the CCC and the WPA and the vision that those people had. I mean, you have to understand, they came out here with little more than a bulldozer, a few chainsaws, and a whole bunch of guys. And now we're back on the map. You'll see where we're going to go. There's the Lake Winona access area. That's the boat launch area there in the middle. But we're going to go on N14 all the way back over to, is that 132 and then to 5, yeah. And then you'll turn off onto Highway 7, and we'll come down and we'll meet you at Iron Springs, where we're going to run into a thunderstorm, which was one of the most kind of delightful, unexpected events I'd had in a while. We went out and drove this one afternoon, and I thought, might as well just go around. There's the Forked Mountain Vista in the northwest corner there. The Oak Mountain Vista just south of it. This is all yours, people. And look how close we are. There's the Cortez Golf Course. There's Lake Lagos, which is on Lake DeSoto. Jessieville is just hard to explain how close all of this nature is to us. That's why we have such dark skies at night. You can see the Hollis CCC at the top. You see the Copperhead Aid Station. I'll tell you about that in a minute. It's a remarkable place, and I'm so thrilled that we had very, very intelligent, wise, and talented forefathers who knew what they were doing and knew what they were going to leave. I ask myself sometimes, I'm certainly not that guy, but I ask myself sometimes, what am I going to leave? bunch of digital YouTubes. Maybe. We'll see. Hopefully some great grandkids. Hopefully. I don't know. Once again, there's one of the buildings at the top. That's actually a maintenance building, I believe. As we enter the top and get up here to the very edge, that's the gate that one of the gates that they close when it's time, the end of the season. There's obviously the motor shed there. We're going to come up here, and I'm going to pause for just a moment. And I strongly, strongly encourage you to do exactly what I'm doing. I'm pausing, and you see there's a little jump in the tape there because this is the last place I'm going to have cell phone connections for probably the next 45 minutes to hour or so, because I'm going to turn left and go straight up this trail, and about 200 yards up this trail, you'll lose your 5G or your 4G or your whatever. A moment ago, you heard me talking about the Crystal Mountain Vista overview. Diane and I were there just a couple of days ago, and once again, magnificent place. What's amazing is that as we're climbing to the top and we're going over 3-foot tall boulders, and that is not an exaggeration, and we're scraping and ooching our way to the top at a half a mile an hour in four-wheel drive, low, drive, to get us up the hill as much as we can. Yeah, as much as we're going up that hill, when we get to the top, there's 3 bars of 5G, and I'm thinking we have got to be 20 miles from any cell tower, but it's line of sight. Once again, this was late July, early August. Absolutely beautiful. We've had a wonderful year with lots of rain. I think we're going to have a beautiful fall if we can get some temperature variation. They say there's the sugar in the leaves, as I understand it, has a lot to do with the colors that they make. Well, if there's no water, there's no sugar. And if there's no temperature change, if it all stays warm and flat and not much change, then the colors don't actually vary much either. I find it interesting the last couple of days when we've been in the forest, some of the trees have actually been dropping yellow leaves, as they may have around your house. So we've got some early volunteers that are trying to get rid of things. If you can, take a look off the edge there just a little. Yeah, it drops. It drops. Yeah. On the right-hand side, you see a little daylight into the forest there. Those are the power lines that come all the way from the highway directly out to the Winona station there. How else are you going to get power, right? Nobody carries a power station with them in their pocket. Now, as you remember, I said that you could actually drive this in a sedan and it wouldn't be a big problem and there's no real issue and whatever. And that is exactly correct. That's true. There is, on this whole trail, probably, 25 miles, there is one, I repeat, one itty-bitty, little-bitty, somewhat muddy spot. And by the way, there's people that pull off right back where we were down there, and they, this might be the muddy spot. And I thought, okay, well, this doesn't look that bad. I've been here before. We've done this before, right? And we noticed that, it was, don't do that again, Dennis. No, that would be, That's the voice in my head that was saying that. Other than that, the gravel road's really great, and you can get through there. And various times of the year, as it dries up, there's no problem at all. Just be aware that it is a forest road. It's not a paved highway. If you got a four-wheel drive, you won't have a problem at all. If you have a SUV, you shouldn't have a problem. You can, by the way, there was a little place you could cut out and go fishing there too. Once again, because this is so remote and there's nobody else out here with you, the fishing competition is very low. I've seen people come back with their daily fill all the time, every day from Lake Winona. And I guarantee you there are people within the sound of my voice watching this video, very devoted people. Thank you, as we're 19 minutes and 44 seconds into it. But there are people watching this video that say, when I was a kid, I used to go camp there, hunt there, fish there, blah, 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 blah. My uncle was a big advocate of fishing here, and he would come sleep in his car and get up at the crack of dawn and go back out and get after them little fishies like they were hurting anybody. Now, we're about to give you a warning here. You've seen some of our other videos. On the right-hand side here, do not go this way. That is Reform Road. It goes to the right. Do not go that way. Do not go that way. Diana and I went through that way thinking, okay, this is the closest way to get to Lake Sylvia, which is pretty much due north of where we are now. Lake Sylvia, Arkansas's newest state park, which was just a product of the Forest Service for a long time. And the Forest Service, yeah, they do recreation, but they don't really want to be in that business. They don't want to have to send rangers out or tree guys out to pick up the trash at the park. That's just not their baby. They don't like to do that so much. So they gave Lake Sylvia over to the state of Arkansas, and the state of Arkansas is really making it nice. It basically was a man-made lake in between a very steep valley with a huge cave, that naturally occurring cave right beside it. And actually at that point, it was a loggers camp, which on one side is now what they've developed it again, but it was actually a Girl Scout camp that was built on top of ancient Indian burial grounds. Yeah, so they closed that down. But then when they gave it back to the state of Arkansas marked those areas off and built a beautiful little cabin there. If you noticed, I've sped up the roll here because, driving 20 miles an hour or 15 miles an hour is going to be slow here. All that to say, that Reform Road back there will reform you, because Diane and I thought, well, we'll just drive up in here a little ways. The first time we'd had the Yoda back out in the woods, and we thought, okay, well, we'll hop back out this way and just, zip on over to Lake Sylvia 5 miles over Reform Road. Yeah, we went through the first mud puddle, and there was water splashing up on the hood, if that tells you anything. And I thought, okay, that's a little deeper than I thought it was, but it didn't really bother me. And then we went through another mud puddle, which wasn't a big deal. We're having fun, right? And then we came around a corner, and the boulders got several feet tall. 2 and 3 feet tall. The path was incredibly narrow, and we didn't know what was on the other end of that road. Well, if you go back and watch the show called Don't Do What We Did, you'll know what's on the other end of the road. Because, we came in the other way and didn't know it and had to turn around on that side too. But now we know what's in between the road. You know what? We might just go do that road now. And part of the deal is when Diane and I go out in the woods, a lot of people that will go out and do overlanding, as they call this, they'll have CB radios, they'll travel in 2s, 3s, 5s, everybody's got a winch, everybody's got a pack. We don't got none of that. So, we're traveling by ourselves. We want to be judicious, and, we don't want to have to walk 6 miles back to a place where we make a phone call. I hear that that's a real problem. That's just what I hear. Because as you'll notice, we're not running into any other cars here, are we now? No. Absolutely beautiful area. Once again, we're driving pretty much due west along NF 114 north of Lake Winona. I think we're about to come up to the access area here in just a few minutes, and that's because I've sped it up 3 times, I think is what the number was. And I know we've had this discussion before, and I'll just reiterate. If you'll notice the trees through here, look at how well spaced they are. How much room is between the trees. That's because they've cleared part of they've uneven aged is what they would call it, uneven aged. Even aged is where they clear cut it. So everything's going to be the same age when it grows back. And it's ugly. It's like a bad haircut. What they've done here is that they've selectively harvested bigger trees, little trees, harvested back in between, and then they've used fire intentionally to keep down the grass and the shrub beneath it, because here's your factoid for the day, my friends. Yeah. Do you know how many trees should be on an acre of land? What, Dennis? What are you talking about? How many trees? What's the optimum number of trees that should be on an acre of land? Any takers? Any ideas? I tell you what, I will tell you that in some places of the village where we've had tornado damage, or we've had other areas where there have been high winds or something, when the trees come back, we can have as many as 600 to 800 trees per acre. Now, you say, Dennis, well, how does that matter? You see they clear cut here on the side. I think that's the part of the experimental forest, if I'm not mistaken. But they're always working to try and maximize harvest, because number one, this pays for itself. It brings in a significant form of income to help manage the national forest. But what you're looking at is that the maximum number of trees that gives the maximum growth and the best health. I mean, you don't want trees that grow really fast and have bad health. That's kind of what we had on the East End, if you note. If you'll note along the East End, right out by the East Gate, there's been some significant clearing and thinning of all that area, and it, frankly, is ugly. It's not very attractive at all. The problem is that we let pine thickets just grow back up like crazy, and nobody ever went in and thinned them back out. So because of that, yeah, that's where we got to. An acre is roughly 40,400 square feet. So if you have a home that's 1,200 square feet or 1,500 or even 2,000 square feet, 2,000 square feet would be 200 of your homes. Okay, pretty good place. 40,400 square feet. So 40,400 square feet, that's a bigger than a super center, bigger than a Costco typically. Yeah, probably on that about that size. Inside a place that big, you need about 200 to 220 trees per acre. Now, this varies greatly, and some people think that one's good and one's bad or whatever. But if you have a 13 by 13 spacing, if you put the trees 13 feet apart, by 13 feet apart, you get 258 trees on an acre. But those 258 trees are very, very healthy, and they grow very, very quickly. That's part of the magic of the area. So, Dennis, why did we let those areas on the east side get out of control that way? Maybe out of control is not the best suggestion or the best phrase, but what happened is that in 1990, Mr. Cooper bought everything from Balboa Road, where the Woodlands is, all the way to the east. Everything before then was bought in 1970. So from 1970, from Highway 7, all the way east to Balboa Road, that was the village. And then in 1990, they bought the other, and I'll explain more in just a second. Well, found me a little creek. I'm going to shoot some separate video for this, but I am well out of range. And that's what part of it's like here way out in the country. And this is way out in the country. Watch the little video here that I'm shooting. This is just gorgeous. Last time Diane and I came by here, this was a little low water bridge, but it was hard to pass. So they just dumped some gravel. And we're back in the truck, and we'll be moving along in just a second. Just wanted to take a break. I actually had to change the camera battery and the camera audio pack there. Yep. Just a beautiful area. Now, every once in a while, you'll see that on a main road like this, they'll just drop in some gravel, and it's beautiful. The water is pristine, the whole thing. Probably 5 years ago, Diane and I saw a bear out here. We saw two little cubs. It's wilderness. It really is. I say wilderness. It is adjacent to wilderness, but it's a very wild area. And we respect it as such, and we want to make sure that we take care of it. Back to my point with the east and west sides of the village, Dirk's Timber Company managed the west side of the village from 1970 to 1990. They had actually owned the land as part of the 1.73 million acres that the Dirk's Timber Company had managed, and then eventually, after selling portions of it to Mr. Cooper, they sold everything else to Weyerhaeuser, and it became Weyerhaeuser, which also there's Green Bay Packaging, which is what they call their land sales division these days. But in the 70s to 90 range, the fine folks at Dirk's, they didn't believe in going back in and planting, scripting out everything and coming back in and just planting plantation pines. Weyerhaeuser chose to do that. So in the 20 years between 1970 and 1990, Mr. Cooper was not sure he was going to take that other 16, I believe it was, 1,000 acres. He didn't know that. He didn't know if the village was going to develop, frankly, beyond Balboa Golf Course. He didn't know that there was going to be a Ponce de Leon golf course. He certainly didn't know there would be a Woodlands. They were not assured they were going to make Lake Balboa. You have to understand, it all comes about. We can look at it from the lens of history and go, oh, we knew that was going to happen. No, you didn't. You didn't know that was going to happen. Nobody did. So Mr. Cooper let Weyerhaeuser manage that optioned land that he had. That was what they called it. In 1990, before then, from 1990 to 1970, Weyerhaeuser had gone in, clear-cut most of that area, especially on the far east end by Granada, Isabella, places like that. They basically just cut everything, went back in and planted pines, and a lot of places it replanted itself with little pine seedlings that grew so thick and so dense. Well, in 1990, they sold that land to Cooper. Woohoo, great, wonderful. We're going to build the village from one highway to the other. Isn't that a great idea? It really was. It was a wonderful idea. But there was a tiny problem. Mr. Cooper had tens of thousands of pine saplings. What's he going to do? Is he going to go in and just harvest them to make it pretty and turn it into pulpwood? No, he's just going to let it grow. So he let the eastern side of the village grow and went in and developed the things that he wanted. Isabella Golf Course, De Monte, yeah, think of that. De Monte Golf Course, Ponce de Leon Golf Course, Granada Golf Course. He set aside 300 acres for the nature reserve, which is named after him and his wife, which I think is extremely honorable. Beautiful place right along the shores of the Middle Fork of the Saline River. Magnificent area. Once again, in some ways you might think, well, this is a master plan. They had it all worked out. Not so much. They probably should have gone in and thinned those pine trees on the far east end side before they got as tall as they did. Now, look on the right-hand side. See how tall these Arkansas pines are? Well, that's great, right? Wonderful. Sometimes. And I'll tell you, because if you let things grow up in a thicket in the forest, then when the wind comes and hits that thicket, it resists it like a big bush. And it doesn't let the wind howl through it and rip the trees out and whatever. It's much more of a buffer. Think of mango bushes on the side of the ocean. They're an initial buffer for really, really high winds. Okay, now we've made all these trees grow together, which is exactly what's happened on the east end, and then we're going to go in and thin these bad boys out, and we're going to leave tall, thin, spraggly trees that don't have all their supporting partners as they did last year. Yeah, don't be surprised to see some of those fail. And the staff at the village, the POA, are quality people. They know what they're doing, and I'm not criticizing their work. I'm just telling you, when you get a beetle infestation like they have now because the trees were so close together, B, super close plantation pines replanting themselves near each other, and C, you don't have anybody managing that at all, the best you can do is just control the damage, which is what they're doing. They're cutting out the dead stuff that has the pine beetles in it. They're thinning up the whole thing to make the whole forest stronger and more reserve. You're more resolute, I should say, and you're going to have more ground cover. So there'll be grasses and all kinds of things that pop up. Was it spring of 2023? I think, was it? Oh, was it? Oh, yeah, I think it was that, or 24. I'm trying to remember when we had, truly, for the first time in my life, an actual tornado. Not just high winds, not just some rotation activity, but a true tornado came through the village. And as you're going down DeSoto Boulevard, you'll see on the left-hand side, as you're going toward the east, before you get to the roller coaster hill, you'll see that we lost lots of trees there, and the POA did a great job of coming back in. Part of that, if you look at a map, a lot of that is private land. Some of it is the POA's land. It's their common property that Cooper deeded them. But some of that is private lots that just had hundreds of logs, and valuable logs, just dropped like matchsticks everywhere. Well, the POA did the right thing. They came back in, cleaned up all that lumber, hauled it off, got it off the ground. You don't want bugs and things building in the ground. Trust me, it's not the best long-term solution. Yes, in the forest, yes, but inside the village ecosystem, it's not in our best interest. All that to say that when they did haul that material out, I encourage you to go by there now. There are 4-foot tall, and I'm using air quote, weeds. Weeds are just native plants that come back and plant themselves in. But that's what happens. It's ground cover for the deer. It's ground cover for the foxes, the rabbits, you name it. All kinds of wildlife depends on that diversity. Look on the left-hand side here. They've thinned this out. They've cut it over. They've gone back in and burned it out. You can see that they burned it because the sides of the barks of the trees are slightly or slightly fire charred. You say, well, isn't that hurt the tree? No. What hurts the tree is kind of what we're doing in the village, and that is we have let needles and leaves and pine and everything fall for 50 years. I'm not encouraging us to have a fire, my friends, and we have so many roads here they act as fire breaks. But I'm telling you, if the National Forest did exactly like we did, if they had not managed anything for 50 years, when they did have a fire, it would be so hot it would kill every tree, as opposed to just a low, stumbling, barely going, barely burning fire, which is what the Forest Service wants and does. Actually, over by Lake Ouachita State Park and over here by us, the National Forest actually prescribes the burns. You can actually go to there's an Arkansas website. I'm trying to think of it's not Department of the Interior, but it's a Arkansas website where you can actually see what prescribed burns are planned for when. So you don't have to be surprised by a smoky day and say, why is all this smoke around here? Because they're doing a prescribed burn, so it gently and easily just burns off all the scrub, burns off all the leaves, burns off all the pine needles, and gets those nutrients back down into the soil. And then, when the next rain comes, it nurtures the plants, nurtures the animals, makes it grow green and lush. But you have to be able to have that cycle. And we've arrested that cycle here for 50 plus years. So if you walk up in some of these lots that have never been built on, I promise you, there's a foot of needles in some places, a foot of leaves in some places. It's just what it is. I mean, we're not the forest. I understand that. So we just have to be realistic about that. You say, Dennis, can you talk forever? No, not forever. Just longer than you, probably. I do want to just note to everybody, I appreciate so much everybody watching and listening. I appreciate your, I think, innate curiosity, just like me here. I'm about to go over this low water bridge, and I have innate curiosity because that sign says, that sign says this road closed. I found an app this last week that was very, very, very helpful if you want to be going off roads. That road is closed until turkey season. And there is an app I didn't know about, OnX Off-Roader. That's AONX space off-road. And when you come up against these roads where Diane and I were just flummoxed and said, well, hey, why is this road blocked? We were coming up here and we were going to use this road to get across somewhere, and now it's blocked. Yeah, those are all noted on that OnX Off-Road, ONX space off-road. On that app, you can actually see what roads are shut and what are closed. If I'm not mistaken, and it sounded a long way off, but it's not, but I believe The other side of Reform Road, the number 56 that we wanted to go on, up to Lake Sylvia, that was blocked, and we had to turn around and go back. Spoiler alert, 30 seconds too late. But that particular road is going to be open September the 1st. Sounded a long way off a little while ago. Now it's tomorrow or later this week, I guess. If you would, ask me questions or likes or subscribes down there at the bottom. Yeah, I had to check and see exactly where my GPS said I was going. That's why I stopped and programmed my GPS before I started driving back this way, because there's no cell phone service. You're in the lowlands. If you get to the very top of the mountains, you can get 4G or maybe even 5G based on the height of the mountain, that kind of thing. But down in the woodlands where we are right now, that's a little harder to do. Diane had noted that Starlink, which is the satellite internet service, does have a mobile service. How about that? So maybe we could get stuck and call somebody. Hello, David Capel. Hello. That's my brother-in-law. I heard a funny joke the other day about four-wheel drives and college education. Yeah, how are four-wheel drives and college education similar? They can both get you stuck in places you probably never should have gone. Yeah, I thought you'd enjoy that one. Beautiful roads here in the village and the National Forest. This is the center part, pretty much, of the Ouachita National Forest. We plan on going, this is basically between Highway 9, which is Williams Junction, Perrin, and bordered at the top by Perryville, which Perryville's a lot in the National Forest. But it's buried on the east by Highway 9, and then we're coming up to Highway 7, which kind of bisects it and goes on up to Russellville. And Diane and I are looking forward to going to the west of Highway 7 here very shortly. We're going to go to Little Missouri Falls. I strongly encourage you to look up some of the things at Little Missouri Falls. It's very close to the Albert Pike Recreation Area. Now, for those of you that don't know, Albert Pike was a Mason. He was in the Masonic Lodge in Little Rock. He's actually buried at Alexander, a very, very, very famous Mason and very renowned. Was he perfect? No, like all of us, he's a victim of his times. He did what he thought was right in that time. Anyway, he was a great guy, and I think he made a great impact for the state of Arkansas. Well, the Albert Pike Recreational Area, Diane looked this up last night. I was surprised. 15 years ago, there was a flash flood, and I think it killed like 10 or 15 people. It was horrible, absolutely horrible. Now, the floods in Texas that we've recently heard about where hundreds died, I'm not trying to compare and contrast and tell you how awful. A loss of any life is a sad thing in this instance. But the Albert Pike Recreational Area was set up as basically a CCC or WPA, Conservation Corps, Civil Conservation Corps workers built a dam on the creek, made it a beautiful recreational area, built picnic tables. The Forestry Service kept it up. Remember, I said the Forestry Service is not exactly in the business of doing that kind of thing. But as they picked up and made that go, nobody thought, wow, there'll be a 100-year flood that'll happen within 6 months, or 6 hours, I should say. And unfortunately, the water rose so quickly, some people couldn't get out, and that's unfortunate. But that's really not the reason to shut it down for, at this point, I think it's been 12 years. It's been 15 years since the event. But probably about 2 or 3 years ago, I spoke with Congressman Westerman, Bruce Westerman. Great guy, extremely intelligent. The only licensed engineer in this Congress, the only licensed forester in Congress. Let that sink in. This old South Arkansas boy knows what he's talking about, and he is also the chairman of the Natural Resources Committee, and I plan on having him back on the show again soon. Wonderful, wonderful guy. But when I interviewed him a couple of years ago, he was saying they were just about to get the Albert Pike Recreational Area back open. This is probably about halfway between Hot Springs Village and Mena. So I think Mena's an hour 15, so it's probably about a 35, 45-minute drive. The southernmost part of that is Albert Pike, the recreational area, and it's just I wouldn't call it a campground necessarily, but it is a beautiful wooded park that everybody needs to go and see and splash their toes in the water. And I'm going to go there with beautiful Diane, and we're going to take the drone around and, yeah, do all that stuff. Then we're going to go north to the Little Missouri, I'm joking, falls. And the water there, oh my goodness, it literally is crystal clear. Literally is crystal clear. So I want to encourage you, if you can, stay tuned and watch for that. We're going to be doing those in the next few weeks. I'm trying to grasp and hang on to as much summer as we can, simply because it's trying to get away from us, people. As Miss Jennifer Allen at the Hot Springs Village Voice newspaper would say, it is not winter yet. Put down that pumpkin spice latte. No, just say no to the pumpkin spice latte. Pumpkin spice. The road does get a little rough here in a spot or two. It's not bad. We are probably within 2 miles of Highway 7, but you wouldn't know it, would you? On the left-hand side there, you see the hills that fall away that actually look down toward the village. There's a mountain in between this road and the village, so you can't look directly into the village. But you can have to think. I think we might have got a little bit of emergency cell phone coverage up here if we had to have some help. I want to remind you, if you would, the fine folks at YouTube do a couple of things these days. They're actually watching how long you watch, and we are into it 46 minutes, and I sincerely appreciate you being here with me that long. That tells me how fascinated you are by this topic also, and I hope that I can see you out on the trails running around and having a great time like we did. It's all ours. It really is, and you need to make the most of it. You really, really do. While we can. By the way, I think there's nothing more beautiful. I love the green. We went to Southern California 3 years ago, and sure, we went up to Bel Air and Beverly Hills, and it's gorgeous. It just couldn't be any prettier. And then we went down to LA, and there was dirt and sand, and just, it was a mess, in my opinion. And I just thought it looked so dead and brown. Literally, we came back, and for 3 weeks I had bad dreams about Southern LA. Not because of crime or anything like that. It just looks godforsaken. It looks like the dear Lord needs to put some water on it. That's just my read. But yeah, but I don't think there's anything prettier than what's coming up in just a few minutes when we get to pull over at the Iron Springs Roadside Park, once again built by the CCC. And I say this, the CCC was the Civil Conservation Corps, which they did a lot of public roads and bridges and infrastructure things. The WPA did things that were similar, but they were called the Work Patrol Authority. So as I understand it, many times they may have even worked together. For example, the CCC may have designed a bridge, and the WPA may have come in and helped move stone or something like that. Either way, it's a bunch of backbreaking work that somebody's got to do, and apparently our forefathers were not slackers. There's a reason they called them the greatest generation. There's a ridge that breaks off to the right here that goes over to Highway 7, and I believe, are we there? No, we're just about there. When we pull off and get on Highway 7, we're going to drive south down toward Jessaville. You heard me, Jessaville. And here we go. And this is at the top of the hill. I encourage you, this is not a lot of traffic on Highway 7. It's significant, but not a lot. You can see the lightning. I just saw lightning in the clouds straight ahead of us. But this little road access is right at the top of the mountain. Get your tail out there or don't, because I don't want somebody to run over you coming through there, because it's kind of a little blind hill. As we're going down Highway 7. We are 6 miles north of Jessaville, I believe is the answer. I think that's what they said. We're looking down at some of the peak ranges that are just at the beginning of the southernmost edge of the Ouachita National Forest. We're driving south at this point. And as we come down to this on the right-hand side, we're going to see a pretty famous site, actually. The Ouachita National Trail, I think it's 168 miles from Pinnacle Mountain State Park, or Pinnacle Mountain, State Park, to about 50 or 60 miles. It's just on the right there. Beautiful little place to park your truck there, and you can go way to the east or way back to the west. You can actually hike all the way back into Little Rock, or you could go to the east, the right there that we were looking at, and you could go about 140 more miles, about 50 miles into Oklahoma. We're about to enter Garland County, coming from Perry. It's P-E-R-R-Y, Perry County. And once again, absolutely, positively beautiful area. But I didn't know, and this is me, how my brain works, I didn't know what the Lord had prepared for us, because we're going to come around these corners. Now remember, they would come from, you'll see, the CCC work camp. There's one, remember where we were back there where we saw the trailhead? Okay, the CCC built all that. So they would put guys in 1925 and 1930 trucks, and they would pick them up right down here, about 2 miles from the trailhead, because they had cabins right there on the left. That was the Jessieville CCC station. You've seen me take you to the Hollis CCC station, but that's the Jessieville one right there. And our friends at the Hollis Country Store remind us that back in the day, Hollis and Jessieville were very contemporaneous. They were about the same size. Is this gorgeous? I know it's raining. And I wanted to pull over, not just to go to the bathroom here at Iron Springs, but if you notice, we're going to have Iron Springs Roadside Park here, just to the right. This is magnificent. They built a low water dam to hold back this creek, and 15, 20 years ago it broke. And so it's just been partially sitting there. We need another CCC to come in. We need more people. There's the dam right there. It's a low water bridge there, a low water trellis that just held things back. These are old photos. This is probably 10 or 12 years ago when I would go back there. As you can tell, the colors aren't, it looks like an old Polaroid, doesn't it? Yeah, but this shows you what the camp looks like. At the time, they actually had hand crank pumps where you could pump your own water up from the bottom. It was iron-based water. That's why they call it Iron Springs. But hey, it was good water, and it was good enough to cook and wash your clothes with and wash your dishes with as you did a roadside park. And not everybody used to go get fast food all the time, did we now, people? So I'm going to shut up and let you enjoy. 501-617-9747. Whether you're buying, selling, or just considering. Oh, we don't need a realtor yet. Yes, you do. Don't delay. Call Janae. 501-617-9747.
Hot Springs Village Venues is brought to you by KVRE at 92.9 and streaming worldwide on iHeartRadio. KVRE is your family-owned local hometown radio station, so be sure and tune in for live local programming, news, sports, and information every day at 92.9. HSV Radio. HSV Radio is heard every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. or streaming on any of the major platforms. Hot Springs Village Radio is an eclectic mix of music, motivation, great music history, and Saturday morning fun. Join us every Saturday morning at 9 a.m., 92.9. And brought to you by the Hot Springs Village Voice, Hot Springs Village only newspaper, also serving all of Saline and Garland County. Your local newspaper for local events. No one else has more local news than the Hot Springs Village Voice about the Hot Springs Village area. Sign up today at hsvvoice.com or call 501-623-6397. Again, that's 501-623-6397. Located at 3576 North Highway 7 in Hot Springs Village, Arkansas, just in front of Walmart. Brought to you by Gotta Go Vacations. www.gottagovacations.com. Troy Woods and Patrick Cunningham at 501-204-4805 can help you with any of your travel needs. Patrick and Troy have been airline stewards for decades, and their experience and their travel can serve you well. GottaGoVacations.com, again, that's GottaGoVacations.com, can help you book the perfect tour for you, whether it's a riverboat cruise up the Mississippi or the Rhine. These guys are who you need to call. 501-204-4805. Troy or Patrick, 501-204-4805. GottaGoVacations.com. D&D Village Properties, Hot Springs Village only short-term rental with over 2,100 five-star reviews. All properties are lakefront. They include complimentary kayaks, hot tub, pet-friendly, and a stunning view of the lake. Visit DD Village Prop today for your vacation getaway.